My name is Tiarra Fain, and I'm from Stafford, Virginia. I'm the victim of family court abuse, criminal court corruption, and law enforcement abuse.
Your mom says that I'm going to need to drag information out of you. Is that true?
Probably. I don't remember a lot, so.
Do you remember parking in a fire zone?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
I think the end of 2008.
And what caused you to park? You just like parking in fire zones, or?
No, I was actually, yeah. I pulled into the front of a store. I was going to turn in a job application, and it was one of my friends. She ran to the door to give it to me, so I got out of the car, and I ran to the door to hand it to her. And as I was walking back to the car, the police officer sped up behind me.
All right, so was this your job application or somebody else's?
It was mine.
Oh, it was yours, okay. All right, so police officer comes up and gives you a ticket for parking in a fire zone.
Yeah.
And did he ask for your driver's license?
He did.
And did you have it?
No.
And so, what is it my understanding your driver's license was expired, or?
Yeah, it was suspended because I owed money for a speeding ticket.
Okay. All right, so you didn't want to tell the policeman that?
No. I didn't want to, I was driving someone else's vehicle. It was a Friday, I believe. I didn't want their vehicle to get taken because they would tow it. So the first thing that came to my mind was my friend's name.
So you gave a name that wasn't yours?
Yeah.
Just so you keep your person whose vehicle you borrowed from having it impounded?
Yeah.
And that was your serious crime? Parking, how many seconds do you think you were parked in a fire zone?
It wasn't even 25 seconds. I just jumped out of the truck and ran to the door, and I was walking back.
So 25 seconds in a fire zone and an attempt to keep from causing a problem for your friend who loaned you the car. That's what you did.
Yeah.
And what happened as a result of that? What was the penalty?
2 years and 12 months in prison.
And who was the judge? Was it a judge or a jury?
It was a jury, but they recommended a suspended sentence that the judge didn't agree to.
All right, so when did this happen?
February 20 trial.
No, when did you do the ticket?
November, I believe it was November 18th of 2008.
Okay. And when did you go to trial?
February 25th, 2010.
Did you have an attorney or a public defender appointed?
I had a court-appointed attorney.
And did that person do a good job representing you?
No.
You need to say that. Say, because I'm not going to be heard. It's only going to be what you say. So say, had a court-appointed attorney, but he or she didn't do a good job for it.
The name is known.
Your mom wants you to name the name. Do you want to name the name?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I had a court-appointed attorney. His name was Ryan M. Rafferty, and he didn't represent me well at all.
So you had a jury trial, and did the jury and the judge understand that you were only there for a few seconds? And did you explain that you were just trying to keep a friend who you borrowed a car from losing their car for the weekend? Was all that explained? And did your attorney at least do a good job of asking you that?
No, my attorney was actually very gung-ho about going to trial. There were plea agreements where I wouldn't have done any time, and there were plea agreements where I would have served maybe 30 days, and he never said anything to me about them.
Should somebody have to serve 30 days for 25 seconds parking in a fire zone and faking a sick note for school, which is kind of what you did?
I don't think so. Most people don't.
We hear all these stories about these people who do horrible crimes and get a slap on the wrist or get out in no time at all. Do you hear those stories too?
I was in prison with those people. I had the same amount of time as they did for like malicious wounding and attempted murders, drug distribution.
All right, so so you have the trial. How did you feel it was going? Did you feel good, bad, or otherwise about it while it was taking place? I'm sure you were scared.
I just felt bad about it the whole time. I was scared the whole time.
And did you realize your attorney was doing a bad job
Yes.
even before the trial started?
I knew he was doing a bad job before we went to trial.
And then what did you think he did once he was in the courtroom?
I thought that he was scared, and that every time I wrote something on the notepad for him to ask the witnesses, he wouldn't ask them. I just felt like he was a puppy in a lion's den. They were just chewing him up, and he was allowing it.
How old a guy is he?
28?
So he couldn't have been out of law school for more than 3 or 4 or 5 years?
If that.
If that, yeah. How was his closing argument? Did he do a good job, or was he...
It was very pointless. He had said something about, you know how they cite another case? He had said something about like an oil spill or something, like it had nothing to do with anything. And when he said that, that was his closing argument. And when he said that, the judge looked at him and like, what are you talking about? Like, he made no sense the entire time. It was like, he didn't know what he was doing, that's all.
All right, so do you remember what the judge said in charging the jury? What did the judge explain to the jury before they went out to deliberate? Do you remember?
From what I recall, I don't remember verbatim, no. I remember him telling that they had like a minimum and a maximum amount of time they were allowed to sentence me to, and that was it. I do remember at one point, they had already taken me back into the holding cell, and the jury had sent back a question and asked if they could suspend my sentence. And the judge said something like, I'm in charge of that, or let me handle that. He said something, like he didn't instruct them. He didn't tell them yes and he didn't tell them no. He told them that's my position. So, but they requested a suspended sentence.
Okay. So, did you know that the jury had asked that before you went in to hear the verdict?
I did.
They
pulled me out to read it in front of me.
To then read the verdict or read the note?
To read the note.
Okay. Well, you had to be excited at that point.
I thought things were looking up.
Yeah. All right. How long did they deliberate?
I don't remember.
Was it a few hours, a few days?
No, it wasn't a few hours.
Okay.
It wasn't very long at all.
Oh, a few minutes?
Yeah, it wasn't long.
All right. So what did the jury say what did the foreman say? Did the foreman announce it, or has it done in Virginia? I don't know. Does the foreman read it, or does the bailiff read it, or the judge?
The foreman is one of the people in the jury, right?
Yeah.
That's who read it.
All right. And what did he or she say?
We find you guilty. Are you talking about that?
Yeah.
Oh, he said we find you guilty on, it might have been like 3 or 4 charges.
Okay. And did they then state that they recommended a suspended sentence?
No, after that they were sent out to deliberate. And then they sent in the note requesting, asking if they could suspend my sentence. And the judge sent them their note back, and then they pulled me back out because they came back with their decision, their recommendation.
Okay. And then what was that? What did they say then?
2 years in the penitentiary for the forgery of a public record, 12 months in jail for giving false information to law enforcement, and I believe it's a $1,500 fine for falsifying, it's another giving false information to a police officer. Oh, using false information, like an ID or something. And I think it was $250 for the parking in the fire lane.
So they didn't say anything about suspended sentence because the judge told them that wasn't their position.
Yeah.
Was that the least they could have given you?
No.
No? They could have given you less?
I think so. I really don't know how that works.
Okay. So what'd you think then?
I don't know. I didn't think anything. I think the room was spinning. Because I was, like, okay, waiting on him to say, like, suspended, something suspended. And he didn't, so.
What did the judge say?
He ordered a pre-sentencing report. I guess that was to determine what he was actually going to impose, the sentence he was going to impose. And but he said, as of now, you're remanded to the custody of the sheriff. So I went to the jail. And I think it took 6 weeks for another court date.
You know, at what point did you think to yourself, how in the world could this have happened to me? Had that already been said, or did you say that to yourself inside your head at some point?
I think I said that the whole time.
All right.
I was in shock when I was in jail.
Okay, say that so that we have it from your words instead of mine. That the whole time you were just thinking, how in the world could this have happened to me?
The entire time I was just thinking, how in the world could this have happened to me?
All right, this one's a little bit awkward to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Your mom feels like she might be responsible for you kind of having the book thrown at you. Do you feel that way?
Definitely.
It's her fault, huh?
Yeah. No. I think that a lot of the anger toward my mother was definitely taken out on me. My attorney, before they appointed Ryan Rafferty to me, they had appointed another attorney, another like public defender to me. And he pulled me in, I think it might have been at my arraignment or something it was, some hearing before trial. He had said to me, I don't know what it is, like verbatim. He said, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what it is, but they're really gunning for you. He said he didn't know what was going on. And then he suggested that I hire a lawyer, but I couldn't afford it, so. And then the judge appointed me Ryan Rafferty.
You know, 33% of people who now appear in court represent themselves because they can't afford attorneys. But then when we add on the percentage of people that have court-appointed attorneys, which just means the court appoints somebody who's part of their system, it's probably over 50% of people who don't feel they can afford. The truth is, no one except the really rich people or rich companies can't afford an attorney, and even them, they must bite their lip over the cost. The cost of the legal system has just become completely intolerable for normal people. You think the outcome would have been different if you'd had millions of dollars and could have afforded
Definitely.
an expensive attorney? You need to say that in a sentence.
I think that the outcome of my trial and sentencing would have been completely different had I had millions of dollars and could afford to pay some high-priced attorney to represent me.
If you're a political science major, is that what I understand?
I was.
After your experience, would you still be interested in being an attorney?
Yes and no. Before, I wanted to be a business law attorney. But like now, if I were able to do it, I'd want to be like an advocate. I would want to help people.
I can see that. Well, you're obviously very sharp. You do a great job of when I coach you as to how to put the question in the sentence. You come back with it brilliantly every time. When you were sentenced, yeah, is it correct to understand you were pregnant?
Mm-hmm. I was 7 months pregnant.
7 months pregnant. And so when you were sent to prison, you were expecting almost any time, is that right?
No, I had my son April 18th of 2010, and I was sent to prison. I was in jail when I had the baby. I wasn't sent to prison until July.
Did the baby go to prison with you?
No.
Was that an option?
No.
So baby stayed with mom?
No, he went with his dad.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about the experience when you gave birth.
When I had my baby, well, they had scheduled me for an induction because my baby was too big. So, yeah, he was almost 10 pounds. So they took me out early in the morning, and they had, they had the restraints and all of that on me. They had me they had my arms basically strapped to my waist when I went out. So I get into the hospital, the hospital, and the doctor's like, remove all of that stuff off of her, because they had me restrained to the bed, both of my arms and one of my legs. The doctor's like, take that off, because I was already having contractions. I was in labor when I got there. And the officer, I believe her name was Stone. Officer Stone, she took the restraints off, and then as soon as Dr. Chichi left the room, she put them right back on and threw this white blanket, this thin white blanket over me. And she just told me to sit there. But throughout my labor, all stages of labor, including my epidural being done on my back, and the pushing and the delivery, I had 3-point restraints on both arms and one leg.
You parked in a fire zone, and yet you have to be shackled to give birth. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm saying I parked in a fire zone, and I lied about my name because I was afraid, and I delivered my baby in chains.
Do you think you'll ever be able to think about that experience in any way other than sadly and hurtfully?
No.
When you were studying political science, when you studied just basic government earlier in school, were you under the impression that we have basic rights, constitutional rights, human rights?
I was.
And what do you think now? And give me that as an expression.
I think that everything that they teach you in school about the law and how America is this great place and we have all these freedoms and we're protected and our laws are just so much better than everyone else. We're so much more civilized. I think it's all crap. I think it's a facade. I think it's what our government wants other countries to think about us, but none of it's real.
I agree with you 1,000%.
Thanks.
And 6 years ago, you couldn't have convinced me that that was the case. You could have talked my ear off forever. I'd have never believed it.
Same here.
I was defensive of Bush. How stupid was I?
Were you?
Yeah. I'm dumb, huh? I thought he was an honest person. I was unwilling to look at what appeared to be the facts.
He fooled you.
He fooled me. He fooled me. But I believe people. That's one of my biggest weaknesses is I believe people. And part of that's because I am brutally honest. I mean, with me, it's black and it's white. And it's here's the rules, and you don't break the rules, and that's how I see things. That's how I expect other people are supposed to deal with me. One funny story: I had this woman who did my bookkeeping early when I had one of my first companies, and something finally happened, and after a couple of years, I fired her. People came in and said, "Man, we thought it was going to take forever for you to fire her." I said, "Well, she did a pretty good job. What do you mean? Well, didn't you realize she always came to work just completely stoned out of her mind? Her eyes were all bloodshot. I thought she just had bloodshot eyes." You know, I don't want to think bad about anybody. How much time did you spend in jail before prison?
5 months.
5 months in jail. Did they treat you well there?
No.
What happened in jail?
In jail, and I got there when I was 7 months pregnant. In Rappahannock Regional Jail, I lost like 15 pounds in the first 2 weeks that I was there. I was supposed to be on a prenatal diet of some sort, but I was eating nothing because the food was so horrible. You couldn't stomach it. They would send me like spoiled milk, like obviously spoiled milk. You could smell it. I was locked. I was in medical isolation for like the first month I was there. So I was in like an 8x10 room. And I wasn't allowed for an entire month to leave out of that room. I was stuck in there. I was like, I'm supposed to be moving around, or do I get a wreck or anything? And I couldn't do anything. I was stuck in that room for a month. I feel like I was in there going crazy. All I had in there was the phone to call my mom every day. That was it. When I needed things like medical, they were not trying to help. Like the officers didn't care, you know. There were a few times where like something was wrong with me, and I would try to tell the nurses, and they would completely blow me off. So I would have to call my mom and tell her, and she would call the jail, and then they would come and help me. But other than that, they didn't take any care of me at all. Me or my baby, for that matter.
Was there any other form of abuse while you were in jail? I mean, you weren't sexually abused or hit or hurt or anything like that?
In jail, no.
In prison?
I was jumped by some women in prison.
Okay. Want to tell us about that?
Yeah. I was walking on the courtyard. I had just got there. And I was really small. I had lost about 47 pounds in jail that few months that I was there. So I was like so frail. I was so small. This girl, she looked like a guy, but this girl, she walks up to me on the boulevard and she's like, "You're pretty." And I was like, "Thanks." I kept it moving. It was nothing after that. Later on, I guess she was talking to another girl. They were being friendly. Another girl that was light complected with long hair. So her girlfriend approached me about it. And when I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like somebody else came from behind me and just like snatched me by my hair to the floor. And she was wearing Timberland boots and she like stood on my hair. And I know that the one girl stood on my hair and then there were 3 other girls on top of me. And I was fighting all of them.
Did you win?
No, I didn't. No, I got beat up pretty bad. It was bad.
And did they prosecute those girls?
No. And I actually told them that I wanted to press charges because I didn't do anything wrong, you know. I told them I wanted to press charges. They completely ignored that. They actually threw me in the hole with them. And so I spent, I want to say 16 days in the hole. in isolation for it.
So you spent 16 days in isolation for being jumped by a girl wearing combat boots and a couple of her buddies.
Yeah, and when I got to medical, I needed medical when I got there. Like, I couldn't see out of my left eye. It was completely purple around it. Like I didn't even, like, my face didn't even look like me. Mainly on the left side. It didn't look like me. All of it was like the Joker on Batman. It was like purple and it was swollen out to here. You couldn't see my eye. Like, it was just a slit. But even when I could open it, I couldn't see out of it. I couldn't see out of my eye until the swelling went down. But for 3 days, first of all, they let me sleep for an entire 24 hours after that. Like, all of my meals were skipped. Like, nobody thought to come and wake me up. Like, I could have been in there dying, and they didn't care. But I slept an entire 24 hours after that. And then when I woke up, I look in the mirror, and I'm not seeing out of one of my eyes, and I look completely disfigured in the face. A bunch of my hair's pulled out, and I go to the door, and I'm like, I need to see a doctor or somebody. She's like, you need to fill out a slip, and they'll get to you on Monday. And I said, I need to see a nurse or somebody, a doctor. I need to see him now. And she said, well, if you don't like it, don't come to SEG. So.
Don't come to what?
SEG, segregation.
Oh.
And I had to do an emergency grievance to get them to come and bring medical to me.
Now, you were in a minimum security prison, kind of a country club setup?
No.
You weren't? After just a parking in a fire zone? You don't get
No,
sent
they
to
sent me to the maximum security prison, the only maximum security prison in the Department of Corrections, the Virginia Department of Corrections.
Was there any explanation for why you would be going to a maximum security prison, ever?
No.
They just
Because they could have sent me to the minimum security work camp, but I don't know why they sent me to Fluvanna.
Did the judge do that?
I don't know. I don't know if it was his order that I go there. I don't know who makes those decisions, but they sent me there.
Mom, do you know?
Now, I believe it was at the recommendation of the Commonwealth Attorney and the probation pretrial people, because when they did her report, they put a lot of false information in there. They said that she was uneducated, a high school dropout. It was totally not correct on who she was.
Were you aware that the report was done on you prior to your being sent to prison that included a lot of false information about you? And if so, would you explain that?
No, I didn't know that the information in the pre-sentencing report was incorrect. I was never allowed to see it. I think she told me that she couldn't show me. But after the lady interviewed me, she told me that her recommendation was going to be probation and counseling. She never said anything about, I never knew anything was wrong.
Have you learned since that the report wasn't favorable?
Yes.
And had a lot of false information? Tell me about that. How did you learn it? What did you say?
Well, I still don't know anything about them saying that I was uneducated and a dropout, because, as I said, I've never been allowed to see it. I just came home almost 2 months ago. I've never been able to see it. But I know that when I was in prison, I would try to do a few things, like I was trying to get into some classes and stuff, and I wasn't allowed to do them because of, the things that I completely qualified for, but I wasn't allowed to do them because, like, things were missing from my pre-sentencing report.
They tried to put her into a GED program. Yeah. She was a high school graduate and was in college.
Yeah, they tried to make me take GED.
What's life like in a maximum security women's prison?
It's pretty dangerous.
You need to explain that. Just say
Life in a maximum
Wait,
security.
wait.
Oh, sorry. Life in a maximum security prison was pretty dangerous. There were days where it was really scary. There are people there that have forever. They have life. There are women there that killed and cooked their babies, and they sleep right next to you. So what do they have to lose? They don't have good time to lose. They're never going home. So there were women who would put locks in their socks and just go in someone's room and beat them while they were asleep. There were people hanging themselves. They were committing suicides. People were getting attacked every day, and you just never knew if you were going to be the next one or if someone was just going to not like you just because. Because when one person doesn't like you, there's about 100 of them that don't like you. And the officers, they are of no assistance. They don't help you in any way. They say, well, you can go to protective custody, you can go to PC, but protective custody is in the hole.
It was the hole there like it is at Alcatraz.
It's like TV.
Dark. It is. Huh?
Yes, like TV.
No lights.
No, you get a little window. It's a little slice of light, I guess. But that's it. It's just like TV.
And the guards would pick on her because they told her she acted uppity.
Like I was better. Like I was too good to be there.
Well, you were.
I agree. And they really didn't like it when I told them that.
Was there an inmate executed
There was.
while you were there? Would you talk about that?
Teresa Lewis was her name. I used to hear her sing. She would sing something. She would sing some gospel song every day. All day she would sing. So for 15 days while I was in there, Teresa Lewis was singing to me. She was really nice, though.
But she was, what was she in there for, murder?
She was in there because she hired someone to kill her husband, and the guy ended up killing her husband and her stepson or her son, one of those. So she got the death penalty.
And she was executed while you were there?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for everybody?
Well, they locked everybody down. Just one day we went into our rooms to count, and then we just couldn't come back out for a couple of days. Because a lot of them were upset about it. A lot of other inmates were upset about it, I guess. Maybe they knew her or something. So they were doing ridiculous things like cutting themselves and fighting and attempting to hang themselves and stuff. So they lock everybody down.
Was it your sense that most of the people in there were guilty?
In there?
Mm-hmm.
A good portion of them. Yeah. A lot of people there were there for killing people. And I was in population with them. But yeah, they were there for murders and stuff like that.
Could these hardened criminals believe what you were there for?
No. No one ever believed. When I tried to tell them why I was there, they never believed me. People would even make up stories. I heard one time that I was there for killing my baby. And that wasn't good because the baby killer thing, they don't like that. The ones that didn't kill their babies don't like that. But I've heard that I was there for killing my baby. I heard I was there for killing my boyfriend. But nobody ever believed me. And then people who came from jail with me, when they would come and tell them she's serious, people would be like, no. And then I'd tell them where I was from, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, Stafford. Yep, Stafford.
So the inmates all know Stafford even if they're not from Stafford.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess they've heard it enough times.
Okay. And how long did you get to spend in this country club?
I was there for a year, and then I was moved.
Okay. Where'd you go next?
Central Virginia Correctional Unit 13.
And was that maximum security too, or was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't maximum. It wasn't better. It's all horrible, but it wasn't maximum security. It was like a work camp. I was going out to work at a warehouse every day. I was driving the forklift. I was moving around. It was kind of like a place where they kind of prepare you to go home, I guess.
Were you doing work for the government, or?
I was working for the state.
So did you get paid?
27 cents an hour. And it felt like slavery. It was so hard.
Well, you know, there's a lot of people who say that our prisons in the United States are just a form of slavery.
They are,
Just
in my opinion.
A replacement for slavery.
Yeah. And I think that that's why they have to keep people going back into prison, to make sure that there are people in there to keep that labor going. Because the Virginia Department of Corrections Virginia Correctional Enterprise made, I think it was $50 million last year off of the backs of the inmates. And I was one of those inmates. So the state the taxpayers pay for us to be there, and then they make money off of us doing work that they pay other people $15, $20 an hour for, paying us 27 cents, and then taking portions of it to pay the court back.
Did you ever get a raise, or is it everybody gets 27 cents?
If you were going to be there long enough, you'd get a raise, but I wasn't going to be there very long.
We lived in England for 2 years. My wife went in to get a prescription filled, and she handed the prescription to the pharmacist, and they said it'd be £3.20. She went, "Wow, how in the world did you know that that was the price?" And the people are kind of snickering and say, "They're all £3.20." So I guess over there it's like socialized medicine. It always costs £3.20. So it would never go up. But in your case, maybe after 10 or 15 years, you might get 28 cents or something. So how long did you spend at stop number 3? This is your third correctional facility, right? Jail. And
I was there for 14 months.
Wow. So now you're up to, how long have you been in at this point? 7 months in jail?
7 months in jail.
12 months
at
maximum?
Yes, at Fluvanna.
And now 14, so we're up to...
And then I was going home.
We're almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Over 2.5 years. And you were sentenced to how much?
2 years and 12 months.
So you were sentenced to 3 years, and you were in there for over 3 years.
No. I was in there for 26 months and 4 days.
Does that include the jail time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So I got off a little bit on
And
the count.
she's also out on 2 years parole.
Yeah, somehow.
Parole. They don't have parole in the state of Virginia, but my daughter is on parole.
Yeah. They weren't allowed to give me, because they didn't suspend any of the time. I did all of it. They weren't able to put me on probation, per se. So somehow they managed to put me on parole. So I'm still under supervision, even though I pulled all of that time.
Yeah. You
So
didn't
they're
get
still,
out early,
I'm
so
locked up even though I'm home.
How can you be on parole when you served it all?
I served all of it.
For probation.
Yeah, they just don't call it probation.
Parole. She's in 2 years of parole.
Just a bunch of crooks.
She has a probation officer that she has to check in with. She has to get permission to leave out of the state of Virginia, just to let him know where if she moves or whatever.
I have to go in and give drug tests.
And she has never done drugs ever.
So, put in a sentence, but it's not over. You're still doing, and kind of explain the things you're doing.
After serving the entire sentence that was imposed, I was released, and I'm on parole, even though parole is not supposed to exist in Virginia anymore. And I still have to do urine screens. I have to check in. I can't leave the state. And I'm still under supervision even though I was released. And I did all the time that was imposed.
If it wasn't for the fact that you're an ex-convict, you would be a great TV reporter.
Oh, thank you.
You're really good at picking up and doing just off the cuff.
Wait a minute. Why can't I be a TV reporter?
Well, I don't know. Do they hire ex-convicts?
I don't know. We never asked what their record
Just
is
give
when
them
we
a
see
different,
them.
just give them a different name when you.
No. No more of that. I'm pretty sure that's not a disqualifier, though.
Well, I hope it's not. It shouldn't be.
Oh.
It shouldn't be. And you know, if they would listen to your story, they would hire you just because of the story. I would, you know. What else should we talk about that we haven't talked about? Are you as nervous now as when we started talking?
I'm not as nervous, no.
Your kids.
Oh, my kids. Yeah. Mom, was it February 20? What was it? April 10th?
What?
The boys.
The boy?
Court
Court?
for the boys. Was it April 10th? May 10th? May 10th. May 12th.
Oh, yeah, about, just
May-
say on or about.
Okay. In May of 2010, while I was already incarcerated in jail, I had to go to court for custody. My son's father had filed for custody of them. And the judge, they appointed me a guardian. Wait. I'm sorry. Do I have to start that over?
Start right over it now. Go ahead.
Okay. In May of 2010, I had to go to court from the jail. They took me to court in Stafford County, and Judge Dalton had appointed me a guardian ad litem, but the guardian ad litem wasn't there. It was just me. And but they didn't appoint my son's one, and the juvenile was supposed to always have a guardian ad litem, but he didn't do it. And they did everything while I was gone. They didn't even bring me into the room. They just brought me out of the holding cell and had me sit there. I listened for a couple seconds, and then he had me sign papers, and he was like sending my kids away. And I didn't see them after that for 2 years.
And the 2-year-old at the time has
He-
never lived outside my home.
He was 3.
3-year-old at the time had never lived
Yeah.
outside of my home. He's always lived in my home. He lived in my home at that time. That day, I was told to go home, pack his things, and hand him over to be taken to New York.
With some people he barely knew. His father's family, he barely knew them.
Okay, and is this temporary or is it permanent?
This is permanent. This is until I can go back to court. I have to go through the process again now.
All right, why don't you put that in a couple of sentences for me? You know, if everything else that happened to me wasn't so bad, well, it wasn't bad enough.
Okay.
I lost one or more children. There were
2.
2 children.
My newborn
I
and
lost my children, so explain that in a couple of sentences.
okay. As if a prison sentence wasn't enough, you know, as if that wasn't enough of a punishment, I completely lost my children. I had a 3-year-old, and I gave birth to a newborn about 2 months after I was incarcerated. And when I went to court for them, the judge just completely took them away from me. He didn't make it temporary. He didn't order home visits to make sure that my boys were going to safe homes. He didn't question the people that they were going to. He didn't question them about their jobs, if they did drugs. He didn't inquire about anything. He just sent them away. And I had requested that my oldest son, go to my mother because all he knew was my mother. My mother was always around. And the judge didn't even acknowledge that. He sent my 3-year-old to New York to be with a family that he really didn't even know. He barely knew them. And he sent my newborn to live with his dad and their family. And there was no visitation or anything ordered.
Now, what are you going to have to do in order to try to change this?
In order to get my boys back, I'm going to have to petition the court and see what the judge says. And if it's the same judge Judge Dalton was really nasty to me. He treated me like I was scum when I was in court. I just hope it's not him on the stand again, because I feel like he won't give him back just because. He was really nasty.
It was abolished. You know what you know about?
So we've talked about the kids.
Mhm.
Good luck there.
Thank you.
What's that judge's name?
Judge Dalton of Stafford County.
Have you guys researched these judges?
Oh, I have, well, Herb Lux has started getting all of the judges' oaths of office. I have like 4 or 5 of them myself. The same with the prosecutors, because this is,
Did I tell you what's happening in Michigan?
no.
Let me just shut this off for a second.